Thanks for sticking around. I'm so excited for this conversation because the power in all of this around understanding and deepening our commitment to access and inclusion is hearing from people with lived experience. And what an incredible panel and lineup we've got this afternoon for our final panel conversation. Elijah, that was great. Thank you. I mean, that, you know, so good and so much in all of that to kind of kick us off with. I think the first thing that I'd love to hear from each of you is, you all come from different areas and different walks of life, different types of practice. How did you get into access and inclusion, and what is it about this topic that excites you? And maybe I'll start here to my left, Yasmin, if that's okay. Have you been given a microphone, or shall I?
I think, yes, I think it's working.
Amazing.
Sorry, could you?
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into access and inclusion work.
Sorry. So I've had successful careers in academia and the public service and had to retire due to my disability, but still had a lot that I wanted to give. And travel has been such a large part of my life, my whole life, through my family, but also in the working world. And as my disability has progressed, I found that more and more difficult. And as we've heard so much today, mostly because of lack of information and lack of examples. And so in my retirement, I started Get Aboutable, which was aimed at improving access to information about accessibility and inclusion. And really focusing, one thing I've heard intermittently today is disability and access needs. And I'd really like people to focus on the access needs, because not everybody with access needs identifies as having a disability. And really what we're talking about is inclusion of everybody. So it's addressing the access needs, it's not addressing the disability.
Such a good point. And it sort of reminds me, Yasmin, of, hang on if I've got this. Okay, cool. It reminds me of the different models of thinking about disability, and hopefully most or all of you in the room will have heard of something called the social model of disability, that talks about the fact that we as disabled people are disabled by the environment and society around us rather than our bodies or our medical conditions. And that's why that focus on access needs, and access needs being things that remove those barriers, is a really important thing to focus on. So thanks, Yasmin. Elijah, thank you so much for sharing your journey before, and I can see a huge public speaking career ahead of you for many years to come. What interests you in sort of speaking more about accessibility, and how have you gotten into that, and where do you want to take that?
Well, with speaking about accessibility, I feel like we need to bring down the walls of the one size fits all sort of stuff, because yes, people can say do it this way and you have to do it so and so, but if you just listen to someone else, they could show you a completely different way that isn't by the book sort of thing.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think from your presentation, just that point around so many different ways, and speaking to lots of different people about access, because it looks different for everyone, was really important. Thanks, Elijah. Hello, Adam. You've had an amazing career in theatre and working in festivals. Tell us a little bit about your personal journey and your interest in access and inclusion.
Thanks, Morwenna. Yeah, so as you heard, thank you for Oh God, it's always so funny when someone reads your bio out, isn't it? Like, all the things you've done. But what's really exciting for me on this panel as well today, so I worked in arts and culture my entire career. I have a background in theatre, but about 8 years ago I started working in festivals, and festivals in particular have, all of arts and culture has an important interaction with access and inclusion, but festivals often have so many different venues. As many people in this room know, there's so many different access points before people arrive, once people arrive, across different art forms. So as soon as I started working in festivals, it really just kind of opened my eyes entirely to so much of what we've seen today in terms of what different access points for different people are and how you can actually build environments and build experiences, because that's what we're doing, right? As events makers, it's actually about creating opportunities for people to encounter their community, a new community, and artwork. And so it's been such an incredible, in my own career journey, to experience that. But also, as you heard today, I'm at like the beginning of this journey as well of, I'm going to get emotional. We were talking about this. I will share it.
We got you.
Yeah. So I've had Tourette syndrome my whole life, and I was diagnosed when I was 10. But the way it manifests for me is you might see it a little bit. It's not the pop culture thing you see of people kind of, for me, anyway, my experience, I don't have coprolalia, which of course we've heard a lot about in the last couple of weeks. And lots of my tics are really idiosyncratic. It's a lot of facial things and maybe some like more subtle kinds of sounds. And so it really didn't, it was something that I like locked down and just kind of thought about myself. And it wasn't until I was doing a master's in leadership about 8 years ago that this was the start of my journey with talking more about it and bringing it more into my practice and my work, both as a leader and as an artist, was one of the subjects in this master's that I was doing was kind of, presentation for leaders. And I hadn't disclosed, I hadn't spoken about it at all with the lecturer, and they didn't speak to me about it, but in really confronting detail described one of my tics and marked me down because this particular tic, and I'm quoting, undermined my credibility and the sense of authority in speaking. And it was just like so confronting in that particular moment. And I don't begrudge this particular person either, because that's the way old modes of public speaking are kind of set up. And that started a bit of a journey for me in terms of thinking about how my experience of tics are not, why do they have to be disruptive, dangerous, harmful, but rather how can they also be something that is part of my power, is part of my creativity, is part of the different way that I think. And so that is becoming really alive in the work that I do with artists, which was kind of my guerrilla question I asked before, but also in the way I think about leadership and how we think, what a leader looks like is typically this, a particular construction, the way we get taught, but there are so many different ways, and that maybe tics for me are a way into exploring other ideas. And it's really new for me to be exploring that in the last couple of years, and into even the work I'm doing with Enlightened is not necessarily a great way that it manifests, but super interesting. Yeah.
Hey, Adam, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And we need more arts and cultural and events leaders that have lived experience and that share that. That's the thing that's going to start to shift the dial, is people in leadership who get it and have lived experience. So, and here's to new ways of public speaking. Oh my God, out with the old, in with the new. So thank you, and feel free to be yourself today as well. Liz, hello down the end. Oh, I was.
Yes, I'm on now. Thank you.
Sorry. Liz, we heard your bio before, but tell us a little bit about you and your journey into working in the access and inclusion area.
Okay, I'm going to start backwards, which is the law, of course. Just in terms of speaking and public speaking, I've had a couple of concussions recently, or in the last few years, and it means that when I'm speaking, I often stumble over my words. I might be in a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm not drunk, and I make a joke, but you can see people getting a little bit cranky, kind of like, she's not focused or whatever it might be. And I'm literally, if I'm super tired, I'll just look at someone and go, and if they can read my mind, basically everyone just needs to learn ESP, get into my mind, and then someone needs to translate for me. And my close friends know this, but And the reason I'm raising it is because it has taught me so much more empathy around different abilities. I direct an inclusive dance company. I've been working in inclusive dance for 30 years. I had endometriosis for 45 years. I'm just trying to remember how old I am. I've had endometriosis for a really, really long time. And as dancers, pain is part of what we do. You've got to keep pushing it, that fine line between good pain and bad pain, and keep pushing, otherwise you're just not going to get a job. And I let this thing eat into me. I was rendered infertile. I've had a number of surgeries. The mental health issues around that are profound, but I've never really needed to raise it in public. And so when there were certain ways that people would engage, or they'd kind of go, oh, I'm in terrible pain, I can't function today, I was a bit hard and I'd be like, suck it up. Then I got a head knock and I've got a glass head, meaning it has had the most profound effect on me. So just in terms of having humility, just kind of going, right, it is so important that we're in a wonderful room. I'm quite emotional in this room because you're all here, and it's not always easy to make the world more accessible in a world that's actually not overly accessible. So it's a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of care and a lot of labour. So yeah, that's me working backwards. We set up the Chameleon Collective, Canberra's first inclusive dance company, about 5 years ago. And initially, I thought Canberra would embrace us, and they didn't. And I have to be super careful because I have a very well-established pair of cranky pants. Think Bridget Jones, studded in large diamantes. So if someone does or says something that's going to compromise the young women I work with, there is a tigress that comes out of me that I have to kind of control, because my response is not going to help the situation. I just have to calm my passion. And what I've realised, even now when I think about it, I'm getting a bit riled, I realise it's kind of years and years and years of just having to suppress and having to do the work in and around accessibility. I from an artistic perspective, I adore working with these young women, because I'll go into a rehearsal. I don't even bother planning a day anymore, because I'm going, I don't know what's going to happen today. And we just go with the flow. And that is delightful. If I get into a room of people who do not live with an intellectual disability, I've got to have everything planned. So I'm loving the new creative freedom that comes from that. And just listening earlier when we were talking about different artists, from my perspective, there's people like Dan Dorr, Mark Brew, Caroline Bowditch creating the most extraordinary art, and they are embedding access into it. So Dan Dorr just blew Sydney Festival away, and every time, or just about 10, 15 seconds before there was going to be a loud noise or flashing lights, a warning sign would come up on the film. The most extraordinary audio description set up. So I started learning audio description because as an older woman, we're hitting the pandemic and I'm like, I can't get a job anymore. So I started audio describing, and kudos to Adam and his team at Events ACT, because we're doing our first, I'm not nervous at all, we're doing our first audio described version of Enlightened tonight, which is great when I can't remember my words sometimes. It's going to be, I probably won't say anything, I'll be too nervous. But kudos and props to Events ACT. And props to Adam for facilitating it. Let's have a little, we're just going to weep now. And also to the National Portrait Gallery team, because when I started learning audio description, I learnt about it through the NPG team. And I kind of felt like I had this backup of group of brilliant, brilliant visual artists that I could go to and say, what word do I use to describe that painting? Because that's super, super important. And as a child, we were living in Malawi, we were taking malarial pills to save us from malaria, and it rendered myself and my brother and sister, we're all now legally blind because of that medication. So these different notions of acquired disabilities, I spent a fortune on glasses. So there's this kind of counteracting, there's artistic creation. I have talked for a long time and I shall now be quiet. But there's also activating different ways that we live.
We love it, Liz. Thank you for sharing, and talk away. That's what we're here for. Liz, you gave us a great example of audio description being a great enabler for events in terms of providing access to some people for events. We heard some great stories from Elijah earlier about, I guess, those lived experiences of the pool and spilt milk. So I'd love maybe to hear from some of our other panellists about events that have either been really accessible for you and your access needs, or maybe events that haven't met your access needs, because I think the more we talk about this and get comfortable talking about this, the better. So might come to my friend over here, Yasmin, if anything springs to your mind that you wanted to share.
Oh, countless examples. But I think in a trend, like summarizing the trends, is the good and the bad. The best thing you can do is have an open heart and use just simple customer service principles and say, what are your needs? How can I make your experience the most enjoyable it can be? And saying, can I help you in any way? Not in a charitable, pitying, I mean, I loved Elijah's words, that look people get when they're pitying you. Genuine customer service. How can I help you? The same way you would with anyone who looks, normal, quote unquote. The flip side of that is, and it's embarrassing how often this still happens, oh, I don't think you'd feel comfortable at my venue or festival or whatever. Or I don't think my insurance will cover that. Or, I don't mean to call out these experiences, but really the best thing you can do is say, we want to be inclusive of everyone in the community. We want people to be safe, of course. I don't think people are out to be daredevils or be destructive or anything like that. And in my experience, whenever somebody says, I don't think my insurance will cover it, it's a cop-out for, I don't want to even look into it. So, have that open mind. And, as many people have said today, say what you can and can't do and let people decide and have the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Yasmin. Open heart, open mind, and good access is good customer service. And if you haven't seen it, and there's a fantastic video by the Sydney Festival, which is actually their accessible customer service video. It's about 4 minutes long. They filmed it like 8 years ago, and they send it out to all of their team and volunteers and everything before each festival, just as a good reminder about what good accessible customer service looks like. So great reminder. Thanks, Yasmin. Elijah, you gave us some examples before, so is there anything more you wanted to say, or we can skip over you? I feel like you've done your homework on this question, but if there's anything you wanted to add about things that have been really great or really terrible when it comes to events specifically, do feel free to chime in.
I feel like I covered pretty much all of the big standout ones that happened in my life, so we can just pass me on.
Well, good call. And it's spilt milk. Great to shout. I mean, it's great to shout out the organisations doing really good work, I think, and really celebrate those. And I'm really curious to go and find out more about that festival now too, and see the good work they're doing. Down the end there, Liz and Adam, what springs to your mind when you think about the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of events for your access needs?
Well, my journey's a bit more interesting, I guess. I haven't, because my lived experience, anyways, has been. Actually, I can talk from like kind of small things, right? So, like it's only recently that I've started really talking about my experience, like with Tourette's, is kind of in terms of access, in terms of disability, etc. Because a lot of the way I was taught about it was suppression and keep it quiet and keep it locked in, and you're in charge of, like, it's something that is my responsibility. But in the recent years, in reflection, it's actually been like really tiny things that have been barriers as well. So, for example, physical experience for me can often set it out. Like if I'm uncomfortable in my body, and I think a lot of neurodivergent people have that experience as well, that it's often like sensory and physical things. So in my job as like a programmer, I travel the country and see lots of work all the time, and so I'm often booking seats and tickets by myself, and part of what I need to feel comfortable is to sit on the aisle a lot of the time, so I can also get myself out if I need to. So many booking systems, particularly for theatres, do not let you book a seat by yourself if it means there'll be a single empty seat next to you, and that happens all the time. And so often it's been like my only option has been to sit like smack bang in the middle, and creates a whole heap of anxiety for me before I even reach the venue. So that's something kind of really small, and that is just, having worked in theatres, that's just a commercial decision, which that's so easily fixed in a policy as well, and also just coming down to, for me, it's often about, do I have enough information beforehand? Like we've seen all day. It's not rocket surgery. But like things like, depending on the event, I personally don't always need a visual story or that information, but for some events I kind of do, if I know I'm going to be tired, if I know it's going to be late, etc. So I don't have any particular examples, but that ticketing one always comes up for me. It's like, I'm often at the theatre, I'm often buying a ticket by myself, and if I can't control the experience that I want to have, it's often a barrier. Yeah.
I think that aisle seat one's really important because that comes up a lot for people with mobility issues too, as well. So, making sure that there is options to be able to book aisle seats is really important. Thanks, Adam. Liz, what springs to mind for you?
Well, I'm trying to think, but it's kind of combined. And so if I think about the Chameleon Collective, the inclusive dance company, I'm going to start with the positive and how absolutely it's like slipping into a lovely warm bath, if you like a warm bath, when you're working with a team of people who ask you what you need and what's going to work, or if you say, oh, look, we're just going to need this, this, and this, you don't get a knockback. They're like, yeah, okay, great. So what else would you like? And what else would you like? And it's not that you push the envelope, but you just feel that you can openly ask what might be necessary. The flip side is, for example, there's a small festival which is really gorgeous and it's running in Canberra, and it happens in 2.5 weeks, less than that now. We only got told yesterday that we were performing. That creates problems for me. My gut just flipped because I'm going, now I've got to go back to my 6 dancers who live with an intellectual disability, and then the other 4 dancers who live with neurodiversity. I've got to speak to all of their parents, the carers, the care taxis. Can everyone get there in 2.5 weeks? Now, if I know 4 months in advance, cool, great, fab. Even if I know 2 months in advance. But if I now go back to this person and kind of it's not about getting, I have to do the work about being super politic about it. They are super excited about having our dancers. This is great. Bearing in mind, it's also World Down Syndrome Day. So it's a big deal for those families to come to us to perform on that day and make that choice. And it's also a wonderful thing for that festival to have us performing, but I don't know that I can make it happen now because there's not enough time. And quite frankly, whether they're living with an intellectual disability or not, getting booked for a festival 2.5 weeks out is not a lot of time anyway, but there are extra layers of work and anxiety that comes up, and I've got to call all the parents now and talk everybody through it and then work it through with the girls and all of that kind of thing, because I don't then want, from a professional dance perspective, I would say thanks but no thanks, but I don't want my cranky pants that I mentioned to kind of negate an experience for these young women and for the audiences who, quite frankly, I know will love them. So it's a two-way thing.
I think we've heard that a bit today, haven't we? Just time as a time, as an access need, and being reasonable about time, and giving people the time that they need to do their best work and to plan and prepare. And there is a lot of extra labour involved in being a disabled person, and that often takes a lot of extra time. So, yeah, great points there. I'm going to ask one more question, but then I want to throw it open to you because you need an opportunity to chat to these guys as well. I don't want to be a question hog, but I do want to. So get thinking. I do want to we've talked a little bit today around wanting to do access work together, around collaboration and working with others, because I think together, as naff as it might sound, together we are stronger when we work with others around access and inclusion work. And as someone who works quite nationally, I've seen a really big kind of shift and push in Canberra in the last probably 5 years of more organisations wanting to do this work well, which I think is really exciting. So I'm curious to hear from panellists if anyone's got any thoughts thoughts on how event organisers could work with others, who they might collaborate with, how they might work with others to help improve access outcomes. And we don't have to go in order for this one, but who wants to jump in with any thoughts around collaboration? Liz?
Can I jump in? One of the things that I think is super important is enabling the people who are maybe they're the ticket vendors, or they're the people who are at the front desk of your institution or your event or anything like that. And they might just be part-time students, they might just do a Sunday afternoon shift, and you might think, oh my goodness, if we're going to provide them with access training, then that's going to cost us a whole lot of money and we can't really afford it. But they are the face of your event. If they don't have the training, they might upset somebody, they might get upset, they may not know how to handle the situation, or even have the guts to say, I'm so sorry, I don't know the answer. Let me go and find someone who might. So if you invest in those people, they will, if they may only be with you for another 3 weeks, then they leave and they go and do another job, and it starts to feed into and around the community. And then maybe 3 or 4 years' time, no one's going to need the training, because everybody's getting it, and the younger generation are coming up and they are so much more mindful of these kind of care and social engagement. So that becomes a way that everyone's investing into and around. And that brings me to the point that I wanted to make about the YouTube clip, and I don't know if now's the time to show it.
Do we have that available? Oh, amazing.
Can I just give it some context? Yes. Cool. All right. So you're standing at the traffic lights, and I daydream, you might be talking to your kids or chatting or whatever it might be, then you hear the beep, 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 and we know in Australia that means that the green walking person is going to come up. If you get creative, so that's taken how much money and infrastructure to make happen, you can think about it, probably give you a headache, but it happens and all of us access it, and it's for people who are blind or who are sight impaired, but we all access it. So if we then get creative, this can happen.
I did this part. You're on a street corner in Australia. You press the button. When the walk sign turns on, you hear this like rhythmic sound that Billy loved, and so we recorded it. It sounds like this. Scared me. People think our hi-hats and bad guy is actually just that.
Duh.
We just were in Australia, and my dad goes, "You heard these crosswalks?" Yeah, it's the chorus
and
bad guy.
You can stop it now. Yeah. Right? So that for me is a fantastic or a classic example of accessibility that has been embedded, that benefits everybody. Most people wouldn't even know why the beeping is there. We're just used to it. She's gone and got real creative. And the thing is, if we do that, then the money kind of comes. She's made over $7 million US just on Spotify streamings from that song, based on accessibility that happens in our community. So if we start to embed and share and kind of community collaboration, I mean, we'll just come to your album launch.
Oh, so good. A creative use of access right there. What a great example. Thank you. Any final thoughts on collaboration? Is anything springing to your mind, Adam?
Yeah. Liz was being very generous before when she was talking about the audio describe tours that Enlightened are doing. So to tell a bit of our position at Enlightened, and definitely one that I'm trying to take, was really inspired, Yasmin, as well by your description of approaching it with an open heart as well. And I actually think that is the first step in collaboration, because if you do something with genuine curiosity and genuine intent, that means when you make mistakes, you're open to learning and change, and that people will also go on that journey with you. So there's something about listening, trying and learning, and if you're doing that with an open heart and with a genuine curiosity and with a genuine desire to make things better, change will happen. And to go back to what I was saying about Liz, Liz approached us for the audio described tours. So the real kudos is to Liz. It was her, Liz has been doing audio description, exploring that for quite some time. And in terms of that collaboration, we were thinking about accessibility. We weren't even thinking about audio description, or if we were, and just to be really honest, audio description often happens in these live events as a pre-record. And the resources to do that are kind of immense, as you can imagine. And Liz wanted to do live ones. And of course, live audio description is a completely different service, but it also honours the experience as it is happening. And for some audiences, that is really important and paramount. For other audiences and other users, maybe being able to access it in their own time and being able to move through it in their own time is more important. But for some, to be able to do it live is really important. So when Liz came to us with the idea, we embraced her enthusiasm and her idea with equal enthusiasm. And so when it comes to, and we're really thankful for that as well. And this is the first time Enlightened is doing live audio description, and it will be a little bit of, I think for both you and I, the listening, trying and learning for sure, but we know that that's the process as well. So what I encourage all of you to do in your own events is like, be ready for trust the people that come to you, because like the passion and expertise that Liz came to us with, it was impossible not to kind of join her and to bring her into the story. So trust experts and trust people that want to help make your event better. And that trust and that open heart, that's the thing that's going to make it good. And I mean, I'm a creative director. I'm airy-fairy and kind of like concept and, love, etc. But if you start from that position, the concrete stuff happens. So start there.
I love that. So good. And what a beautiful partnership that's formed kind of through that. And it's making me think, because I'm working a little bit with Vivid, our Sydney Light Festival at the moment. Just yesterday, someone kind of pitched to them doing an audio described cruise tour of Vivid, and cruise is a huge kind of part of the money for Vivid. Sorry, I mean I guess you got a lake, but yeah. But like, what a great idea, and again embedding access in. I feel like I've been greedy with the questions, so let me throw to you and get you guys to ask these wonderful panelists the things that are on your mind. Anything from today that you'd like them to expand on further? We've got a mic. Who's got a question? Don't be shy. Great, excellent. We'll jump on over to you.
I'm trying to be better by using the mic.
Yeah. Take this one.
Hello. Thank you. Give that one. All right, is it? Yeah, perfect. So my question is that like nobody wants to do anything. Someone's stealing my question. Nobody wants to do these things and be tokenistic, and often you end up being someone who's a little bit further down the management line, and then maybe management takes a more tokenistic line or to do this. Anyway, I'm thinking like, how do we, if we are to represent or show representation of everyone, how can we do that? We don't really want to be just going up to every person who visibly looks as though they have a disability and say, hey, do you want to do my thing? And I'll take a photo of you and I'll use the photo of you everywhere. We will use this to represent you. How can we do that better? Is there a better way that maybe everyone else is going through to do this?
So, question about tokenism and how do we not be tokenistic? That's a great question that hasn't come up yet today. Yasmin, have you got any thoughts on this?
We've been talking a lot about hidden disabilities, and one statistic that hasn't been brought up yet is a survey of people with hidden disabilities that shows that only 3% would voluntarily divulge their disability unless they had to. And the reason is because of all the stigma and the tokenism. Now, if you're somebody like me who cannot hide their disability, I have no choice but to embrace it. But I'm very much aware of people who have hidden disabilities, who have access needs, who are reluctant to share that. If you want to know how to get more information in an organization, anonymous surveys, I'd start with the staff, because as you said this morning, you might not feel comfortable divulging a disability publicly or at interview stage, but if you ask the question of, do you have any access needs that our event or our experience or our venue should consider, and having that anonymous, it will start to engender those answers. The other thing is to have, feedback service. So just like when you're ticketing, asking, do you have any dietary requirements? Do you have any access requirements? Those two questions should be standard. If you're asking dietary, you should be asking access. And in customer feedback, were you happy with the food? Were you happy with the access? If you change your mindset to the things that we ask routinely, add access to that list.
Thanks, Yasmin. Anyone else have any comments or thoughts on tokenism? Otherwise, we can take our next question.
I don't think anybody in this room would do this, but it does, because you're here and you're spending time and a lot of effort in listening to a lot of things that are being said. But if you are another one of my bugbears, gosh, I just sound like the crankiest person in the land. I do try and, I'm not too cranky. Oh, there we go. God, I'm repressed. Is when I don't ask the question anymore, what's your access budget? I ask, do you have an access budget? And I am completely prepared for a very indignant response of, oh my goodness, absolutely not. Don't be ridiculous. We're $30,000 over budget anyway. Or literally someone once, a very well-known producer in Canberra once said to me 4 years ago, got really quite cranky and said, don't be stupid, Liz, no one's going to pay for it. So oh yeah, totally. So just the notion of the tokenism, oh goodness, yes, we want to be seen to be accessible, but we're not going to pay for it. And don't be ridiculous, we don't have any money for it. I'm not saying money comes out of nowhere, because it doesn't, unless you're Billie Eilish. Sorry, that's not from nowhere, but you know what I mean. But it's kind of just that notion around the knowledge. Like if you don't have an access budget, just say, as you said earlier, just be honest about it and say, but what could we do? And then you will find people, like if I can do it, then I'm like, all right, well, let's just describe this and quid pro quo, or whatever that term is, so that it is much more real. And that it isn't, as you say, it's not token, and it is taken care of, and there's not this presumption of, I was asked recently to describe, no I wasn't, I was asked to sign. I'd offered audio description, and this is a presenter for a festival that happens in a month's time, a different festival. They didn't know the difference between audio description and Auslan, and then they asked me to do it for another company every day for a week for free. Yep, and I just dignified it with silence. But that, for me, is tokenism. A, they haven't informed themselves. B, oh, you can just do that for free. And it's not about me wanting to monetize an access service. I don't. But at the same time, as an independent artist or just an independent, you want to have a conversation and we can see what we can do, great. But otherwise, no. So there's a bit of that. I don't think that would happen with anybody here, but I'm sure you're all aware of others that it might be. So it's just being conscious of those things.
It's a professional service in the way that anything else that you're engaging for your event is a professional service. And for those of you that apply for grants, I'm yet to find a grant program that will deem access costs ineligible. So I encourage you to build access costs into your grant budgets. In some places, like Queensland, for example, you can now apply for access costs on top of the grant cap amounts, which I think is exciting. And I hope we see more of that around the country. Who else has a question? I know we're coming to the end of the day. I know the gallery's closing. It's all happening. We are moving to wrap up soon. But Heather, great. Let's grab you a microphone, if that one's working. If not, take mine.
Thanks, Morwenna. And thanks for such an inspiring panel at the end of the day. My name's Heather, and I know most of the panel because I used to work with Events ACT, but now with the National Museum. Events in Canberra just bring so much vitality and dynamism to this city, and everyone in this room is contributing in such a significant way. But Yasmin, over the break, you were talking about what extraordinary progress has happened even over the last 5 years, and how proud you feel to see how much ownership there is for making progress. But let's fast forward 5 years and we can wave a magic wand and things change even more dramatically. What does Canberra look like for you in the event space, for all of you, in 5 years if we had the most inclusive and accessible events that you could imagine?
For me, accessible events would be ones that I can buy tickets online just like anyone else, including my companion card, without having to name the name, because I love that point about when you buy a ticket, you don't know who your carrier is going to be on the day. Having accessible information online, including level access arrangements and bathroom facilities. Yeah, we don't talk about bathrooms enough. But if you think about, any event that you go to, everybody has to go to the toilet. And if you can't go to the toilet, you're not sticking around. Food trucks and access to food is another one. And quiet spaces away from crowds. Because although I'm not neurodiverse, I do get overwhelmed and it's too crowded. I'm running over people in my wheelchair and I just want to chill. So yeah, that would be my wish list, and that would be standard.
Amazing. What a great wish list. Let's add to it. Elijah, what do you want to see in 5 years' time?
5 years, what do I want to see? For me, I feel like the thing that I would want to see more is like just kind of there not being so much of a stereotype of like people go here, but if you're like living with the disability or have needs, you won't be able to do that. Just like break down the wall and just let people just be one, disabled or not.
Love that. No segregation. Thanks, Elijah. Adam, what about for you?
Yeah, lots of these really concrete things, of course, but I'm also thinking about, I was thinking about your question down the front here as well, and then thinking about how, what you were talking about, Morwenna, in terms of the access costs being built in, that it's the language, this one's a bit more conceptual, but like the discourse is not around, like the material things are a given. We're talking about it as practice, like that this conversation is not about the barriers, but we're talking about the innovations, we're talking about the thing that you did, and it's all completely embedded into the practice of all of our events, so that we're sharing resources, so that we can keep iterating and making all of these things really innovative. And on that as well, more artists with a lived experience of disability programmed in all of our programs, whether or not that is in an advocacy space where their work is about it, or whether the barriers for participation are kind of are reduced in order for artists with access needs to be easily and excitedly included in our programming. I've been thinking over the last couple of months actually around, like, how we have relaxed performances as an access tool that we have for people that need it. What about relaxed processes as well, right? For everyone, like Elijah was saying as well, because particularly in our sector, particularly in events, it's kind of like go, 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 go. And I'm sure we've all received and sent, I know I have as well, those emails when you've been waiting for 2 weeks for the approval, you finally get it, you send it to the artist and be like, great, we're a go, I need all this information tomorrow. Let's just get rid of that, Relaxed process as much as for makers as well as for audiences.
Universal design. Who wouldn't love more relaxed processes in all of our lives? Beautiful. And Liz, wrap us up with adding to the wish list for you.
Well, look at you with your words, universal design. And I think that's totally tying in with what Elijah's saying, and also, the work that Yasmin does in and around accessible cities. And I think one of the things is, we're talking about festivals and events, but it doesn't I think we all know it's not necessarily about festivals and events. It's just about living and universal design. And on that note, Canberra is making a bid to become a UNESCO City of Design, and as a designed city, there's a really strong argument for that. And from my perspective, part of that is, and part of the power of that pitch is the level of accessibility that is not, obviously with some of the buildings being heritage, they may only be 50 years old, but that's heritage, bless me, I'm heritage. But the thing is that, the amount of work that's being done around it, the thinking around it, it just means that it's not just about festivals and events. You're the ones providing those and presenting them, and you're doing all this hard labour, but then that feeds into everyday living a little bit like our traffic lights. So if we have more of that, then we've got more of a universal city, more of a universal design, and that speaks into this city, and then that speaks across Australia and speaks across the world as well.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking our fabulous panellists for a great conversation.